Good morning, Janice.
Morning, Anthony.
Today we're going to talk about three strategies to deal with illiquid estates. So sometimes estates just don't have cash and they only have illiquid assets like the home or a business or artwork or other collectibles. So the problem is that when you're settling an estate, there's a lot of bills and expenses that are kind of ongoing that you need to settle or you need to pay to keep things moving.
Yeah.
This includes like court fees, movers, cleanouts, accountants, things like that. So we'll discuss three ways to deal with cash poor and illiquid estates. All right. All right. So first, we're going to cover the scenario where can the heirs just pay? So if the heirs have the funds, meaning the surviving family, the folks who are gonna inherit once the estate is settled, they can lend money, quote unquote, lend money to the estate to keep things moving. So it's basically like the estate will be worth
Right.
$200,000 once we liquidate everything, but we have no cash to get us from a house to cash, right? And we need a couple $1,000 to move and clean out and hire an appraiser, this and that, but we don't have that. So the person who wouldn't, or the persons, the nieces and nephews who would inherit at the end of all this, we give them a call and say, hey,
By the way,
we need some money.
yeah,
So that's not a great situation. Why not? First of all, not all heirs have the ability or the funds to pay. I mean, it's not always $100. It's actually several thousands of bucks.
yes,
And you just might not have that kind of cash lying around. Even if one, let's say you have three nieces and nephews, even if you have one heir who's financially in a position to do it, you create this imbalance. The real world situation is now that heir, that niece, I don't know, by human nature, she's going to feel like, you know what, I'm kind of like the one running this show here because I'm
handing out the money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
you're digging in my pockets, and now
So you're going to return
have
my
like
calls first, not my siblings or cousins, whatever the case may be. And it does create a little bit of imbalance. That's
yes,
possibly more psychological than anything, but it's a thing. It really happens.
we've talked a few times about how when you're dealing with this entire situation, you're dealing with people who are upset and grieving, and family dynamics. So it's just kind of one more thing that could actually not make it so great.
Exactly. And on top of that, your executor must keep they should always keep good records, but now they must keep impeccable records to make sure the repayment and then the adjustment or balancing in terms of the in terms of the final inheritance, it all like nets out properly. So it does create kind of like headaches in that regard. Okay. That's one way to deal with illiquidity. Basically, ask or beg for money from the heirs. Another scenario is, you might ask, can you get a loan against your inheritance? Yes, but it's not great.
No.
So you're talking about borrowing from what's called an inheritance funding company. These are basically payday loan companies for heirs and estates. Do you know what a payday loan is, Janice?
I do. Yeah. Like you're expecting something to come in and they're going to, give it to you in advance at a very hefty price, right? Like the fees.
What do you think hefty means and as a percentage here?
I mean, if you do take a loan out at a bank, it's anywhere from like 1 point something to 4 point something. I would imagine that this is incredibly higher. I mean, we've seen it. You come in, it's sometimes almost half of what they would have gotten now goes to the companies. So 50%.
I don't know how you're getting a bank loan for 1% to 4%. I mean, I think that's that's the interest.
Okay, maybe it's like 4%, but yeah.
Think about a credit card APR.
That's different. That's
that's going to be between 12 and 20%, right?
Yeah.
So if you could do that, that's actually better than these these inheritance funding loans, which, as you mentioned, Janice, will go up to like 50%. It's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to run down quickly how it works, just in case you're curious about the mechanics of it. I'm not really endorsing this, but I'm just helping you understand,
it's out there, right?
Yeah, what the option is.
Yeah.
So let's say you have an inheritance of $10,000 that you should be receiving, right? But you want it now, and you don't want to wait a year or several months for the probate process to play out. So you go to the inheritance lender, And you have to sign these documents that pledges that $10,000. You're saying, I signed this document so that the executor at the end of all this gives my $10,000 to the inheritance loan company, not to me. And in exchange for signing those loan documents, the inheritance funding company gives you $5,000 cash now, half. Okay? Hooray! I have $5,000 in my pocket. That might be what you need. I can't judge your situation or whatever.
Absolutely.
But you got half. And then the way it works usually is depending on how long it takes for the inheritance funding company to get their $10,000, they either keep it all if it takes a long time, or if the estate closes rather quickly, they might give you back $2,000, right? So essentially, you paid $3,000 to borrow $7,000. Do those numbers work?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it could have taken a lot less than you thought it was going to. Right.
So there is a mechanism or a setup where you won't pay up to 50%. But as we've talked about ad nauseum in this podcast, estates take a long time. So in all likelihood, you'll be paying 50%.
Yeah. In all honesty, it's not going to happen in a month. It does not happen. No.
And if you're so close to the finish line that you're like, then just wait. I mean, come on.
Yeah, just wait for, yep.
So yeah, I mentioned that the heirs need to sign a bunch of paperwork to make this happen. So just be aware of that. And also be aware that the lender will have a ton of questions for you and for the executor. They want to basically know that this is actually happening before they cut you a check.
They're taking a gamble, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
They're going to give you $5,000. They really hope that there is actually that $10,000 coming to you.
But otherwise, this is a widely available option. Aside from the paperwork and the questions, this pretty much goes through as long as you are a legitimate heir. So this is I won't call it a good option, but it is an option.
It's an option, yeah. How often do you think we see it? I've seen it a couple of times come through. I mean, it's not used as much as I would think it would be.
I would say it's not used as much as we would think it would be because thankfully, I think a lot of people don't know about it. I think more people would use it if they knew about it, which I don't think is in their financial best interest. So I'm kind of glad people don't know about it.
So we just don't. Yeah, exactly.
We don't like volunteer this. We don't suggest it to our.
No, definitely not. No.
All right. Last strategy for dealing with an illiquid estate. You might be wondering, can I just delay paying the estate bills? Yeah, you can, but it's hard. It requires a lot of juggling and a lot of savvy to know which bills have to get paid right now.
Right.
And which bills I can delay and sort of, defer until a little bit later when I hopefully have some cash. This kind of reminds me of like somebody who's ever had to like decide whether or not to pay the, kind of like in a financial tough spot. Do I pay the phone bill, the electricity bill, or do I feed my kids? You have to like play that juggling game.
Yep.
I mean, I guess you can feed your kids, but I'm just saying there are scenarios where it's tougher to decide what to do next.
Yeah.
So an example of this would be, negotiating to have certain vendors accept payment upon the sale of the illiquid asset. So you have an appraiser who usually needs, $500 up front to do an appraisal. Maybe you can get them to agree to do the appraisal for $1,000. Again, we're like, paying out of paying extra, but they'll get paid at the closing of the sale. Maybe you can find somebody to do that. I don't know, maybe not. It's tough. It requires savvy, a lot of negotiating, it just makes everything harder. Yeah.
It does. And even though you may negotiate, the bill to be paid after, that does not mean they're not going to stop sending you letters all the time, right? Like we have some that know they won't get paid until the house is sold, but we still get letters from the debt collections and such, on a monthly basis.
Pretty much.
Yeah. It's not going to stop it, but, at least they'll know.
Yeah. So that's it. Those are the 3 strategies we have. They're not great. So ideally you try to avoid a situation where your estate is illiquid, but that's what we have. That's what you do, basically, if you're stuck in that situation. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. We've seen it. So I suggest Anthony's book, How Probate Works, available on Amazon. Dig into this a little deeper, how to set up for it.
Cool. Thank you, Janice. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Take care.
Bye-bye.